Hi, welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. A very senior female police officer has said that the police are letting women down. She says that of the 1,500 officers accused of committing acts of, physical intimidation and actual harm to women, less than 1% of them have been fired. That means 99% of these officers, these male officers who commit acts of criminality, strong physical criminality against women, are still working as policemen. It's clearly wrong and it clearly needs to be investigated in full, and these policemen need to lose their jobs. But the police, as we know, are not your friends, and we've seen time and time again that they continually get away with this because of that code of keeping very, very quiet when they see fellow officers committing crimes. So we're going to take a look at this article and see what's going on and why officers are not losing their jobs after committing sometimes terrible acts. Here goes. So women and girls have lost the trust in police. A chief says she wants more officers investigated and sacked as it emerges just 1% of 1,500 male accused officers who committed acts of it's too early to say the word in the video yet, against women were fired. 1% of them were fired. The rest of them carry on with their job. The police don't care. A senior policewoman today admitting policing has lost the trust of many women and girls after new figures just showed a fraction of the officers accused of DV, physical V against women were fired. The first ever national report on offending by serving officers and staff revealed 1,500 officers and staff faced complaints over their treatment of women over just a 6-month period. But just 1% was sacked. Deputy Chief Constable Maggie Blythe, the National Police Chiefs Council coordinator for V against women and girls, told the BBC Radio 4's Today programme she wants to see more perpetrators investigated and sacked. Certainly, every single one of them needs to be investigated and, where appropriate, sacked with immediate effect and with loss of pension. You cannot have criminals in the police, and anyone in the police who commits a criminal act of any description, not just this particular one, but of any description, must immediately lose not just their job, but their pension. That will help concentrate the minds wonderfully. We know that policing has lost the trust of many women and girls across the country, and behind these figures, of course, is a victim in every case, and also, importantly, is a perpetrator, she said. So in publishing these figures today, we're making very clear, both in terms of public complaints and internal misconduct, that we need a very robust investigation. I salute and clap and applaud this woman. I have been calling for this for a long time. You can go back and look at my videos. I have done so many videos about the terrible things the police are getting up to, and the fact that nobody in the police is highlighting it or wanting really to bring it to the fore and let the people know what's going on. She has stood up and is beginning the process of doing that. So well done to Maggie Blythe. And as you say, she says, the figures are very nuanced. It is a snapshot in time last year. The data is now a year old, but it allows us to have a trajectory each year in publishing this information of how we are strengthening those robust investigations. This is, of course, only a 6-month period. So it would be 3,000 over a year. 3,000 officers a year, and of which maybe 30 lose their job. That cannot be right. In any civilised society, people who commit these acts need to be accountable, need to be tried, and where appropriate, jailed. Never mind just losing their job. But it is terrible indictment against the police because this continually happens. I've been doing stories about this more or less from day one on this channel, and nothing changes. She continued anyway. We don't want in policing people who are guilty of these sorts of crimes against women and girls. And she added that any man who had hit a woman should not be a serving police officer. Correct. In the 6 months between October the 1st, 21 and March 31st, 22, a total of 1,539 officers and staff were accused of V against women and girls by members of the public or by other colleagues. But in the same period, just 13 officers were dismissed, which is less than 1% of those accused. And of course, we have seen in the last, even just in the last few sort of weeks and a month or so, how many policemen have been jailed for M, for R, for multiple R, for CP, for... the list is endless. The police force is filled with vile, degenerate, disgusting people, and no one is vetting them and re-vetting them and checking them. And when these things do come to light, they're quietly got rid of an awful lot of the time because the police don't want bad publicity, and it's far easier just to fire someone or at least let him resign and keep his pension than it is to go through and embarrass the police by saying what an awful man this was. We just recently had a policeman who went to his garden shed and hanged himself simply because he didn't want to go to court for the tens of thousands of category A images of very young people, shall we say, leave it at that. He ended himself rather than go to prison because he, as a very senior police officer, would not have had a very good time in prison. But I want every single officer who commits a crime to have a really bad time in prison. And that way, the officers that remain know that they aren't ever going to go to prison because they ain't ever going to commit a crime. Anyway, the data published by the National Police Chiefs Council shows that 70% of the misconduct cases completed in that period led to no further action, and 4 officers were let off with a written warning. So the fact that they've got a written warning means that they've admitted, and the police know, that this officer has raised his hand to a woman. And instead of doing the decent thing, firing him immediately and then prosecuting him, because he must be guilty, because he wouldn't have got the warning otherwise, they've just given him a warning and told him to carry on constable, basically. And it is a farce. It is a joke. 672 officers and staff across England and Wales face disciplinary probes after being accused of sexual offences or v against women in the 6-month period. 672 just for that in England and Wales. These people think they can get away with it because they are wearing a uniform, and unfortunately that seems to be a case that's true. She said there were a further 524 public complaints made against 867 officers and staff, but shockingly none of these complaints, not one. So if a member of the public makes a complaint, not one resulted in anyone being sacked, and 91% of reports resulted in no further action. This is the public being attacked by policemen and complaining, and not one policeman has ever lost his job. Not one. This cannot be right. Statistically, this shows something is seriously amiss in the police. They are corrupt and conniving. And now you need to hold the senior officers guilty of the crimes of their underlings. It is the only way to ensure that this changes. Anyway, now Deputy Chief Constable Maggie Blythe, who is in the National Police lead on tackling V against women and girls, wants zero tolerance for criminal behaviour. Join the club, love. Every single person who's not a member of the police wants zero tolerance on police criminality. She admitted the scale of alleged offending was likely to be underestimated, as many victims are reluctant or scared to come forward. The senior officer also acknowledged that some of the accused may be repeat offenders who have previously been spared the sack by superiors. It is shocking to hear that amongst us we have potential predators in policing, and I know this will further shake the fragile trust. Well, we've seen exactly the kind of people who are in the police. The people who end the lives of women and of children, who abuse in all different ways women and children. These people then just carry on as per normal because they have a warrant card and a blue uniform. It is disgusting. And the officers around them, the constables, the sergeants, the inspectors, all around them, they all know that these people are like that. They all know this is going on, and yet nobody speaks up. They have that code. And it is completely disgusting and wrong, and everyone who knows about it needs to stand in the dock at the same time because they're guilty after the fact. She said, our recommendation to government is that anyone cautioned or convicted is immediately barred from policing. And that's before or after being in the police, I would imagine. She said forces must be harsher in sanctions so chiefs can sack perpetrators quicker. Inexplicably, 4 of the 43 forces were unable to provide figures on complaints or misconduct by their own officers. Nearly 10% of police forces in the country were unable. They meant won't provide figures on the complaints or misconduct by their own officers. On average, victims wait more than 80 days for a police complaint or misconduct issue to be resolved. And of the disciplinary cases, 39% relate to alleged inappropriate sexual conduct, which includes the R, the SAs and the S harassment, soliciting of prostitutes and child SA. A further 6%, and this is policemen, remember, these are policemen. This isn't the general public. These are supposed to be the ones stopping this shit from going on. A further 6% related to abuse of position for sexual purposes, which is no other word for it then, but if you're using your position to do that, it's still statutory R, isn't it? Let's make it there. Among the complaints from the public, 63% were accusations over use of force, 6% were about harassing behaviour, 6% were about SA, and 5% were concerned of abuse of position to pursue a relationship. All the time. I don't know how many videos I've done, and they're all of the same thing. It's all power. These men have power over women, and they abuse that power terribly. And the women are destroyed by it, and it is wrong. And we need to drum these bastards out of the force, lose their jobs, lose their pension, and for where it's appropriate, a long time in a hard prison, and make sure that everyone in Gen Pop knows that these are policemen, and make sure that they have a really hard time. Andrew Simon of the NV Against Women Coalition said, this data is just the tip of the iceberg, given that many women choose not to report these things to the police. It'll be heightened when the perpetrator themselves is a police officer or staff member. The lifting of the lid on police misconduct is part of the efforts to tackle misogyny after scandals including the M of Sir Everard by Wayne Couzens and the jailing of his colleague, the prolific Ara of women, David Carrick. Yesterday, the Metropolitan Police announced plans to re-vet staff who were accused of breaking public trust. Not far enough. They don't have to re-vet staff accused. They need to re-vet every single officer on the force and every single civilian worker on the force. And they need to be re-vetted annually, every single year. And it is not enough, and especially with the Metropolitan Police, because they are the worst of them all. There's thousands upon thousands of policemen in the Met currently being investigated for sexual conduct. Just one crime. Thousands. And that is the state of the police that we have in this country. So I'm going to round off and come up, and honestly, it is frightening what we've got for a police force. The number of stories I've done like this about the police and what they're doing, and finally one of their own number is standing up, highlighting this problem, saying it is a problem, it needs to be sorted, and that discipline needs to be increased and made far more harsh. We've called for it. Everyone's calling for it, except the police. Now, finally, one of their own is. And I wish her all the best. I think she may come under a lot of attacks now. Fellow officers will not like what she said or what she's doing. But she's being brave, and she's saying it, and she's doing it. And so we thank you. Now, moving on from that, it's quite depressing when I look at the number of times I have to do stories about the police. Continually. And it's the same sort of thing all the time. Why are the chief constables not clamping down? Why is nobody clamping down on this? And until it's sorted, nobody will ever have faith or trust in the police. And women in particular. I mean, this was the whole point about women's trust in police. Well, women don't trust the police. Women dare not trust the police because women are often the victims of the police. So where does a woman go to when she is attacked? you know, she can't go to the police anymore. It's as likely that she's attacked by them. It's a sad, sad day. Anyway, I shall stop now. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please do hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. Ladies, don't ever trust a man in blue. And goodbye.